also enabling so it could go live to
Okay.
the website. Okay, and so we are also streaming live as well. So we're recording and streaming live.
Okay.
Welcome to Create Income Coach. I'm Jamila Harris, and I'm excited to be with you today and have one of my absolute favorite people in the world joining us that will share very significant information with you. Your life will never be the same after this next few minutes. So keep the dial right there. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Create Income Coach. Visit our website, Create Income with or without a job, and order our audiobook, Create Income with or Without a Job. It's only $12.99 quarantine price. And we want to make sure that you have all that information. We'll share that on the screen with you later. Right now, I want to join in and welcome Beverly Petrus. Beverly Petrus is an extraordinary entrepreneur. And give me a moment. I want to share with you some of the background about she and her husband in business. Let's see, I want to share my screen and show you some things about Beverly Petrus and her husband in business. So Beverly Petrus and her husband, Ali, are extraordinary entrepreneurs and community philanthropists. They own and operate a privately held business that offers gasoline sales combined with retail restaurants and services at 5 locations in the US and British Virgin Islands. Beverly and her husband also own and operate multiple Subway restaurants. Beverly is the mother of 2 daughters and oversees daily operations and manages more than 50 employees. Beverly and Ali Petrus give generously to charities that focus on the well-being of children and youth. The story of their journey into entrepreneurship will inspire and enlighten you. So we welcome live today, Beverly Petrus.
Morning. Hi. Thank you for inviting me, Jamila. I appreciate this opportunity.
So I love to share the how-to. You know, most people do interviews about how successful entrepreneurs are and so on, but you have opened your heart and been willing to share. And I'd love for you to share with our audience how you and your husband got started in business. It is really an extraordinary story.
Oh, wow. Okay. So in 2002, right at the end of 1999, we decided that we wanted to relocate from the Virgin Islands. So we relocated to Atlanta without jobs. And we both thought it would be easy getting jobs because we had pretty good credentials. You know, my husband has 2 master's degrees. I have a bachelor's degree in business management. And we had pretty good careers, you know, before leaving Ireland. You know, we had wonderful resumes. And so we got to Atlanta, and what we didn't take into consideration was the country was about to go through a recession. And so employment was very hard. People were laying off from jobs. People were moving from bigger cities to Atlanta. And it became so competitive, you know, with so many people that you're fighting to get jobs with. And my husband would always hear, "Oh, you're overqualified for this job. You're really overqualified for this job. You're more qualified than I am." And you know, for me, it was difficult too. But it was such a dark place because, you know, you move with all this anticipation of things just falling in place, and you realize that, wow, they're not coming together as quickly as you'd like them to. So I did find a job. My husband still didn't find a job. We even bought a home prior to all of this, you know? And so, because we thought it was going to be bam, 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 all success, you know, great resumes, well educated, great job experience. And it just never panned it out. So in that period though, it was very challenging. And I remember, my husband and I are believers. And so there was this song that Donnie McClurkin had just come up with, "We Fall Down, but We Get Up." And that became our anthem. And that's what sustained us during that period. And so we had one car. So my husband would drive me to work. He would go back home and fill out resumes, and it was online doing all these monster.com and all the different apps, um, platforms that they had for applying for jobs. And so anyway, that was a period in which for my husband, it cemented in him that that was the last time he was going to apply for a job from anyone. And that's where the entrepreneur spirit was birthed, out of frustration, out of feeling that your livelihood is dependent on others employing you. And so he decided he wanted to switch that script, and he wanted to be the one in control of his own financial destiny, as well as being the creator of jobs for others. So, long story short, that's how we started. We truly didn't have any income. We left the Virgin Islands where we had a mortgage, we had a home here, and we bought a home in Atlanta. So, we're trying to figure out how we're going to do this. Thank God we were good savers, and we were able to grind our way through until at what point we decided Atlanta is not for us. It's too competitive. We can't find a job. And 6 months later, after our daughter finished school, we sold our house. And that was a blessing because we moved into a neighborhood where homes were still being built. So selling a house that you lived in for 6 months was like, but God opened the door. Someone was moving from Florida, wanted a house that was already built, bought our house, and we were moving from Atlanta to Florida. And so the story began there. So as we moved to Florida, I was blessed enough to get the job that I had in Atlanta transferred you know, um, to Florida. And so my husband continued his journey. Finally, he was able to be employed by the state of Florida as a financial controller. And we still dug in for the entrepreneur opportunity. And so one of the things that we did while we were in Atlanta in that dark period is my husband, while I'm at work, would drive to different businesses because his mindset was, I don't want to recreate something that I don't know. I've never been in business. I want to do something that's already have a formula. So we thought about franchising. And so he would drive to different franchises and look at the customer counts, just park his car and look at how many people are going into these establishments. And so in our online researching, Subway kept popping up. And my husband said, how many people want to buy sandwiches? I don't think that's going to work. And so one day, I said to him, well, they have a lot of locations. People must be buying their stuff. So one day he did the same thing. He dropped me to work, went to the Subways around the area that we lived, which was in Snellville, Florida. I'm sorry, Snellville, Georgia. And he saw all these people going into the Subways. So he picked me up and he said, you are right. People are going to these stores. And so we started online filling out an application to become franchisees. And when we continued on that journey, we were told that the market was already taken. And so we had an opportunity to do it in Tampa. And my husband was persistent on, no, we're going to still keep plugging away at doing this franchise business. So we looked at a few others and we weren't that impressed. And one day we got a phone call from Subway and said, we've seen your application and we admire your persistence, because my husband kept sending emails. And he said, we'd like to interview you. And the rep actually lived in Florida. So we met halfway. We drove an hour and a half. He drove an hour and a half. We met in the middle. And interview went well. And he said, I really like you guys. So he said, we'll give you an opportunity in St. Thomas, even though there's a franchisee there. We kind of not liking their operation, so we're going to give you a chance. And that's how we started.
And you've given me a great segue into the next question, which was why choose a franchise? And I want to make sure that our listeners heard kind of your husband's decision-making process there, which was not having been in business previously. He started looking at and visibly looking at the results that certain types of businesses were experiencing. And he leaned toward a franchise, which is a system. You actually become part of an existing system that has a proven step-by-step method of doing things, and it has a proven financial and earnings track record generally for each individual location. And so your husband basically used that as his empirical method of choosing whether to do a new standalone business that you guys just came up with a storefront and all of that startup on your own versus entering a franchise system.
Right. You got to know when you're going into business that if you've never done something before, you want to kind of look at what has been done that's successful. And a franchising business is almost a how should I say, it's a step-by-step kind of formulated system that teaches the greenness of person. First of all, you have to go to their training center. You don't just put the name on the door and open business. They train you, they teach you how to do the day-to-day operation. They also teach you in Subway's case. We have a class called Subway University. So you go for 2 weeks to Connecticut, where the headquarters is located, and you go through classes of the business part of it, how to read P&Ls, how to understand your food costs, how to schedule your labor, understanding their computer system, all the financial paperwork that is requested of them. You have to understand how that is all pulled together. They teach you how to be successful on the bottom line, how to manage labor and food costs, which is the two things in any restaurant business that will tank you if you don't manage those. And then also how to run the day-to-day operation, how to make the sandwiches, how to clean the store, how to protect yourself from liabilities such as slips and falls, food poisoning. I mean, handling of food is like so important. And so they spend a lot of time on giving you those basic things that you need to run your business, but they also teach you the things that you need to keep your business open. Because you can have as many customers as you want coming in the door, but if someone gets food poisoning because you're not handling food properly, that's a liability. If someone slips and fall because you're not paying attention to some ice that melted on the floor from the soda machine, that's a liability. So they teach you quite a bit. So you don't have to reinvent anything. And that's one of the good things about most franchises. And so that's why my husband was like, we've never owned a business. I don't want to start anything and just wing it. I want a system that has been proven and that's working.
And so it's not inexpensive to engage as a new franchisee. So talk to our audience a little bit about that process. The franchise actually charges you enrollment fees, and then continuous fees as you remain a part of the franchise system.
Each franchise have a different franchisee cost to get in. So to become a franchisee, you have to pay a fee. It can range anywhere from $20,000 to $200,000 depending on the franchise. And today the cost is different. What we entered in 2003, today those numbers are different because as the franchise become more successful, the entrance fee to become a franchisee goes up. And so you have to do your research and make sure that those numbers work for you. In my husband and I case, we had no money. We were, like I just told you, we moved from the Virgin Islands, started over twice, Georgia and then Florida. But what we did have was a seeded piece of property. We had a property in St. Thomas that we had planned to build a house on. And funny, it was something where we ended up buying a house instead of building a house. So we still had the property, we didn't sell it. And so my husband and I decided, okay, we're going to split that property in two, and we're going to sell. It was a half an acre, and we sold a quarter acre of it, and that became our seed money. And so because of that, we were able to then take that money and pay for our franchise fee.
Amazing.
Yeah, the other thing is, so when you become a franchisor, I'm sorry, a franchisee, you have to pay the franchise fees, and it varies from franchise to franchise. So in our case, Subway have what they call the franchise fee, and then on top of that, they have a marketing fee. Those fees are paid weekly. Some franchisors may say they'll charge you by month. Some charge you by week. In our case, it's a week. So every week, a percentage of our sales goes to Subway, and that covers using their name. Basically, they're saying you're paying me to use my name. And then the other marketing piece goes towards marketing your stores. And it's local marketing. In this case, the money is used for local marketing, but it's controlled by headquarters. So when you see a Subway commercial in your local market, it's our advertising dollars from this market that goes into those commercials, radio, TV, print, but they're managed by headquarters. So those are responsibilities that you have, that you must pay in order to keep that name on your door. If you don't pay them, the name comes down.
So explore a little bit for in fact, and you and your husband operate multiple Subways now.
Yes, we have 4 Subways in St. Thomas. And we also just became, maybe about 4 years ago, a franchisee of Sbarro's, which is a pizzeria. So we actually have 5 franchises that we own. And each one operates a little different. There are different rules for each one. Mm-hmm.
So let's discuss briefly, if someone is listening to us and thinking about entree into business, for the advantages of entering a franchise, which allows you to have an existing system that you get training, you get plugged into, and so forth. It has demonstrated sales and history and so forth. There are also there's another side to being involved as a franchisee. Can you share just a little bit of insight in that regard?
Yes, like for example, the remodeling of stores. Every couple of years, you have to remodel your store to keep it fresh. That's all done by the franchisor. And as a franchisee, they have the footprints. Everything that you see in the store is purchased through Subway. And then we as a franchisees, purchase that material for construction and remodel our stores. So you don't have to worry about going into a local lumber stores to buy anything. Everything has to come from Subway. So we remodel our stores. I believe it's every 10 years. Yes, every 10 years. And then equipment comes from them. So they have big purchasing agreements with different companies. So when you order your refrigerators and your coolers and your display units, that all comes from their purchasing power. So you get it at a better price than if you walk into a regular commercial store that sells refrigeration. You will pay a whole lot more. It's still not cheap, but it's cheaper than if you were to shop it on your own. Food. The food comes from an approved Subway vendor. So it comes from a big food distribution company such as Cheney Brothers or US Foods. They're different ones in the States. We're connected to ones in Florida, and it's Cheney Brothers. And purchasing agreements are made with manufacturers of different types of products, such as your turkey manufacturers, your steak, your tuna. And so again, Subway have a co-op that they work out pricing with these companies. So as a franchisee, you're buying at that co-op price. Again, all of this is done to help you control your food costs, but also for consistency in the products for the franchisor. Because you don't want to go to a Subway in Florida and then go to one in New York and their products are different, taste different, look different. So everyone buys the same products from the distribution centers. POS systems is another great tool that they offer. You purchase your POS system from them. Um, Everything is, of course, at a cost, but they program it. You have the online support if you have issues that they dial into your system and they fix your computers. Um, Even your toiletries and your cleaning supplies, they're all coming from approved vendors of Subway with
So
negotiated
POS then,
point
for
of sale.
those who are not, this point of
Mhm.
sale. So that's the cash register and things that you see for
Mhm.
actually closing and consummating sales,
Yes.
and the software behind there.
Yes, because they're proprietary, so they are written specifically for Subway restaurants.
So is there mostly benefits and fewer disadvantages for being associated with a franchise?
I think it's how you look at it, because I know some franchisees who feel like, you know, the cons are like heavy for them because, every week you're sending a portion of the money that you make to them. Um, you want to shop for your own refrigeration system. Why do I have to buy it from them? Um, But for me, I think there's more pros than cons. I feel that I like the controls that they have in place. One of the things that we do every month is we have inspections in our restaurants every month. And someone travels from the corporate office. Ours happen to be in Puerto Rico, and every month we're inspected. Some people think it's annoying that you get inspected every month. I have no problem with it. It keeps you on your P's and Q's. So it just depends on your mindset. For me, I like the fact that I don't have to create anything. Now, there are things that they propose that you can add your twist on, especially living on an island. Everything is not going to work out the same way it works out in the States. For example, my shipments, I can't call today and get a shipment tomorrow. My shipment is traveling by a container. So I have to work out in my head what it's going to take me to be able to have complete inventory from one week to the next. And I have to figure out my buffers. So my food costs in my freezer maybe will be more than what it is in Miami or Atlanta because they can have trucks come to them twice a week. I have one container that comes to me once a week. So there are different things that you work out that to based on your knowledge of your business, but following their guided plat their guidance in terms of how it should work. But no, nothing is cookie cutter. You have to kind of tweak it to your needs. So for me, there's more pros than cons.
We're talking with Beverly Petrus, who is an extraordinary entrepreneur. Beverly and her husband, Ali Petrus, own and operate a number of Subway franchises and Sbarro franchise in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And Beverly, if you want to reach out to Beverly, have questions for Beverly, visit our website, createincomewithoutajob.com. That's createincomewithoutajob.com. I'm going to take a moment and share my screen with you so that you can know how to get in contact with our website and also get information about our audiobooks that are available to you. I'm Jamila Harris. I'm the author of Create Income With or Without a Job. It's a guide to financial recovery. So for anyone who has suffered job loss, the book is an immediate audiobook download from our website. We are offering a quarantine special price of only $12.99. So please go to our website, createincomewithoutajob.com, and buy that audiobook, download that audiobook. Our YouTube channel, Create Income Coach, features in interviews, but it also features instructional videos that are literally teaching segments from the audiobook. So we teach you everything, what to do the first 30, 60, 90 days after sudden job loss, how to develop a transitional budget for yourself, how to identify your marketable talent, skills, and abilities, and how to create income immediately for yourself with or without a job. So we encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, and definitely visit our website and get a copy of Create Income with or without a job at our special quarantine price. So we're rejoining Beverly Petrus, extraordinary entrepreneur. We're talking about businesses that Beverly and her husband, Ali, operate in the US and British Virgin Islands. And Beverly has shared with us in a previous segment how they got started in business. So we encourage you, definitely check out the initial interview segment where she tells the story, very unique story of struggle and just things not working in the time frame that you think they should work in, or being frustrated because you have enough education, you have credentials, and you're still not landing a job. I personally went through that myself. And so that's why I try to share these stories to let you know, whatever you're struggling with, whatever your challenges are right now, they are not unique. And there are many of us who have gone through those same challenges and survived. And what we are trying to do is help as many people as possible, not only to survive, but to thrive in these really tough times where it seems like money is not going to come from the usual sources. We encourage you and remind you that you can create income with or without a job. So we're rejoining Beverly. And Beverly, I'd love for you to talk about your other businesses, because you and your husband learned a lot from your franchise experience. And that gave you kind of a platform from which to expand into businesses of your own, which are just amazing. So talk about your other privately held business that you and your husband operate.
Well, my husband and I got baptized by fire in many ways. So we had the Subway restaurants, and then we decided to venture into another franchise, IHOP. We opened IHOP in 2007, and it lasted but a year. We found out the hard way that not every franchise is good for the island based on the population. We needed a bigger population to sustain that IHOP.
And so some of our viewers might not be familiar with IHOP, depending on where they live in the country or in the world. International House of Pancakes is IHOP, right?
Yes. And so we opened one here in St. Thomas, and all was going well. I mean, it was exciting and it was new, so we had quite a bit of support. But as things got to taper down, we realized that we can't sustain this IHOP on just business on a Friday and a Saturday and Sunday. We needed business Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday and Sunday. So we started to have declines in sales. Our overhead was tremendous. And so at one point, we had to make a very tough decision to see our investment go down the drain. You know, being in business is not for the faint at heart. You have to be tough. There are going to be some good days and there are going to be some bad days, but your mindset is what takes you through it. And, you know, we decided to swallow that painful pill and say, okay, we can't allow all of our businesses to tank. We're going to have to let this one go. So we closed that operation. But even during that season of being, you know, down and depressed, because we're humans. I mean, there was I think it was $1.2 million that went down the drain in a year. And instead of, my husband is he's a fighter. He's a fighter. And he got to the place where he said, many nights he stayed up in bed figuring, we're going to have to file bankruptcy. We're going to have to file for bankruptcy. It just doesn't look good. And then he said he would not sleep at night. One night he got up and he had this brainchild that said, diversify. Diversification is basically not having one line of business. So we had all restaurants. So my husband decided we got to find something else that's other than restaurants, because when restaurants go south, we got to have something else to cushion the blow. And so in driving around, one day he saw a spot and he said, I need to find out who owns this spot. I think it will be a great location for a gas station. So gas station was a diversification. Long story short, we were able to get the piece of property, and we leased it, and we are now have it was our first gas station. We branded a line of stations called PG Gas, which stands for Petrus Gas, playing on the word petroleum, petro. So our last names being Petrus. We were like, hey, Petrus Gas, PG. So we opened our first gas station there. I believe that was in 2010. And then shortly thereafter, we developed a plaza. And that plaza now holds other businesses along with our newest franchise, which is Sabaro. And it has been a blessing. So diversification we found was necessary because staying in one line of business for us was very risky. We had a major disappointment of IHOP failing, and it put us on the brink of filing for bankruptcy. Because when you do these ventures, you got to sign everything you own. When you weren't born with money. Neither my husband and I grew up with money. We came from humble beginnings, and we are just hard workers that have been blessed with some guts, and understanding that when you stand on faith and for something that you do what you got to do and let God do what he have to do. And so we expanded, and today we are now restaurant owners. We have our Subways still, our babies. And I say those have been the babies that have birthed everything that we have been doing. Even the failed business IHOP, we call that our doctoral degree. People want to just say, oh God, that was such an awful experience and I don't even want. No, we actually today, we tell people that's where we got our doctoral degree. We learn a lot of stuff. And we chose not to just tuck our heads under anything and be ashamed of what happened. We used that opportunity to recollaborate and say, you know what? We got hit really hard there. However, we're going to fight our way out, because a lot of this is mindset too. Don't stay in a place of depression when things go bad. The economy right now is bad, and all of us could be depressed because it's not one of us, it's all of us that it's affecting. But we have to look for the rainbow in all of this. Yes, we're humans and we're flesh and we're going to be down, but let's not stay down. It's a process. You get you down for a minute, but you look for that rainbow and that silver lining. For us, that rainbow and silver lining, our doctoral degree, was IHOP, the failure of that. So today we are blessed with a diversification of the restaurants, the plaza, the gas station. And we've also expanded now into another island in the Caribbean here. It's called the British Virgin Islands, Tortola. So just a few months ago, we opened our first gas station and plaza. We're still completing the inside of the plaza as COVID-19 has slowed us down, but we will move forward once we're able to get engaged again. So that's our diversification.
And let's point out something here, which is just a wonderful nugget that you shared in redefining, reframing what can appear to be a failure is literally something to build upon and something to draw from. Some people actually just quit too soon. They just throw their hands up, file bankruptcy, and say, I'm a failure in business, and then start looking for jobs again. But what you and your husband did was you stayed in the business. The fear of financial failure, I think, is one of the keys that literally runs a lot of people out of business. But the reality is you cannot get to success in business unless you have some of these failure opportunities in which to learn and to build on.
Yeah, I think we just have to, change the way that we look at failure sometimes. Failure is in the moment. It's not in the future. It's something that's happening in the moment, and you have to grieve in that moment. It's don't circumvent the process. Go through it. But when you have done that, you got to still look to the horizons and figure out, okay, so that has happened to me and it didn't feel good and it cost me. It costs you some stuff, but it's not the end. So then you have to figure out, based on where you are, what steps you can take to move forward. And it's not easy. I'm not saying this like it's easy, because there are a lot of sacrifices that comes when you're in business. There are days when you don't get a paycheck. My husband and I laugh about it sometimes, but we both get written paychecks. They're handed to us, but one of us can't change it. One of us is holding on to that check, waiting for when everybody else's stuff has cleared to now pay yourself. But those are sacrifices that you have to make sometimes. And they're not bad sacrifices, because every season is different. There are seasons when both of us can change our checks. And then there's seasons when we, like right now, we took a pay cut. Every one of us, including our daughter who runs the business with us, we all took pay cuts, And so you do what you have to do in the meantime, but it doesn't stay forever. Just get up, dust off, and like Donnie McClurkin can say, we fall down, but we get up.
We get up. Yes, and I want to expand a little bit on the major point that you made about diversification. As an entrepreneur and someone who learned the hard way, I mean, I had great education like you and your husband, speak foreign languages, was studied in universities around the world, had all this wonderful education. And when I lost my full-time job, could not get another job because it was that same kind of competitive environment where 250,000 other young, talented, gifted people had lost their jobs in a recession. And so I learned the hard way not to have, as the proverb says, all of your eggs in one basket. It's vitally important to have multiple streams of income. You've got to have income coming from multiple sources. And in fact, in one of our instructional videos on Create Income Coach, we'll share there are different types of income actually. And so you even want to not just diversify the types of businesses you're operating, but also the types of income that you're creating. So I want to delve a little deeper into what you mentioned about the gasoline business and the plaza. Those are what I call vertically integrated. So there's diversification. You have restaurants, the Subway, Sbarro. Then you have gasoline stations. Then you have the plaza. So you've actually got 4 different things kind of going on there. And from with the gas station, with the plaza, I consider that to be like an integrating vertically. So you have a gas station, which you don't create traffic.
Right.
So in that where that gas station is, you add the food restaurants and so on, but then you've also added renting office space to different types of businesses.
Right. And that was necessary because when you build something, you want to create magnets where people come, things that pull people to it. So you have these restaurants. Well, people come in to eat, but when they come to eat, then they can say, you know what, let me fuel up at the same time. So they're doing 2 things. They're getting 2 things on their checklist taken off. Then you have offices where people need to rent to work. So their clients can come and visit. So when their clients come and visit, their clients can go to a restaurant, their clients can get gas, So you create an environment where things are like a magnet from one thing to the next. So it keeps the area robust. It keeps the businesses robust in that there are people that's coming to patronize several businesses, not just my own, because we have other restaurants in that plaza that doesn't belong to us. And what we do is we make sure that we don't compete against each other. So whatever I sell, I make sure that the other person who's renting from me, I'm not competing with them because they have to be able to make their income as well. So we have to be thoughtful about it, not because you're landlords, you do what you want. You want to make sure that everybody who is, who's renting from you, gets a piece of the pie. You let them succeed and they thrive, because if they can't thrive, they can't pay their rent. If they can't thrive, they can't sustain their own families and so forth. So we try to create a nice blend of businesses where we don't cross over into each other's economic situation in terms of path, but we give our customers who come to all of the establishment an opportunity to do multiple things at the same time. We even have a bill paying center. So if people want to pay their utility bill, they can come in and pay their utility bill instead of driving to the company to pay it. So we try to be thoughtful about how we place everyone into the plaza. So, yes.
And it's absolutely amazing. So it makes a really convenience store concept just blow up, because you'd have not only the gasoline and the conveniences, but you actually have, a utilities payment center, certified public accountant. You have businesses that people need to utilize, but every time they come in there, they're also going to spend money with you for gasoline and at maybe one of your restaurants.
Yes, as well as the other tenants who are there. We have a convenience store there as well. Once again, we could have had a convenience store. We allowed another person. One of the things that my husband and I try to be mindful of in business, no one gave us a chance. Well, let me change that. I shouldn't say that. We had a lot of favor that came in our path, through other people. And so we try to reciprocate. We try to give other people an opportunity, so we don't hog everything for ourselves. The convenience store is naturally something that goes with the gas station. We chose not to do it and allow someone else to do it. So that's their income stream. Their tenant, that's their income stream. We also have, like you mentioned, an accounting office. There's an insurance office in our building as well. There's another restaurant. It's a Spanish restaurant that's in the plaza. We have the bill payment center, and then we have the Sbarro, and our offices are in that same plaza. So it's quite a diverse types of businesses that are in there that allows all of us to be able to benefit from each other's traffic flow.
And this is another tip for our viewers to really grasp. With businesses and the expenses to operate a business, one of the things that's also really smart about how you've vertically integrated your office space, which is normally an overhead, right? Mm-hmm. You're also helping to offset the cost of your office overhead for your office operation by situating it in the plaza that collects rent from other business tenants.
Right. We were not office people. Our offices were our cars and our home. And when we built a building, we were finally able to say, we have an office. And so sometimes it's still like, wow, we actually have a place where we have staff that helps us. It was my husband and I, and we worked on the road in the day. We came home at night, and our dining room table, one of our bedrooms were converted into an office, and we would do our work. So it's really a blessing now that we actually have a staff, wonderful staff that keeps us together, and we couldn't have done what we're doing without them. So we're finally, able to have an office. The cost is offset because we're using it to facilitate all of the businesses that we have. Yeah.
And early on in our first portion of the interview, you shared some really interesting, personal details about how you and your husband started in business. And you've just touched a little bit again, and I want us to really expand upon the fact that those of us who are operating businesses, often our car is where we're operating from, our bedroom, our dining room table, the eat-in counter, in our kitchen, and there is no secretary, bookkeeper, accountant, courier, and all that. We are all in one. And for those of us, as we've just talked about, handling multiple streams of income, that means for myself personally, I juggle 3 businesses. And so there's nothing glamorous about it when you are trying to, you do what you can with what you have. You can't always hire people to do things.
And don't despise small beginnings, because that's the foundation of you learning your business. You see, you can only outsource work to people when you know what they're supposed to be doing. And because you did it yourself. And so there's nothing wrong with working out of your car and your car being your office, your dining table being your office. There's nothing wrong. That's where you learn your business, and never let anyone know your business better than you. So when you've gotten to a point where you can have an assistant, that's great, because now guess what? You know exactly how things should be run. And so you're able to train that person, and you're able to still have that third eye on your business.
We're talking with Beverly Petrus, an extraordinary entrepreneur. She and her husband, Ali, operate 4 Subway franchises, a Sbarro franchise, and they created another privately held business, which is gas stations, with a plaza that offers offices and to other businesses. And you are viewing this interview on YouTube, our Create Income Coach channel. I'm Jamila Harris. I'm the author of Create Income with or Without a Job, and that is a guide to financial recovery. I'm going to take a moment to share our website and our contact information with you, and the information about our audiobook. Again, Create Income with or Without a Job is a guide to financial recovery. So anyone who's experienced sudden job loss, this is not a book that was written out of a master's thesis or some concepts from school. I lost my full-time job, and 18 months later was completely broke and homeless. I had no clue where my next dime was coming from, and I literally had to do something to create income. And so this book is the actual practical steps which myself and now thousands of others have used to literally go from day to day to day, the first 30, 60 days, 90 days after losing your job, developing a transitional budget, how to identify your own marketable talent, skills, and abilities, how to learn how to present and market yourself, and create income immediately. So it's absolutely realistic, practical information you can use right away. And so you can visit our website to purchase the audio download. It's an immediate audiobook download. And we have a special quarantine price. It's only $12.99. You click and download it, and you have that information to start running with. You also can visit our YouTube channel, Create Income Coach. And we have really produced and will continue to provide instructional videos so that we are actually teaching you how to do everything that the Create Income with or Without a Job audiobook promotes. And also like us on Facebook. We are also really delighted to have entrepreneurs like Beverly Petrus, whom you're hearing from today, who share firsthand experience, life experience at operating businesses. So if you want to reach out to Beverly, you can also send us an email at createincomewithoutajob.com. And any questions you have for her, leave a comment below in the comments in this video. Just let us know if you want to reach out to her. We will make sure that you can contact her directly. So Beverly, I want to talk about one aspect of something that I've noticed. You have a particular skill set that has evolved very nicely. You've had you've had a franchisee experience. You have privately owned businesses. You now have reached that point where you've hired people and developed teams of people. And I think you have some extraordinary expertise, again, from probably the School of Hard Knocks, on how you identify individuals who will become employees or members of your team. Talk a little bit about your process.
Well, in regards to the restaurant piece, restaurant business is it's no easy business. On ownership level as well as on employees level. Restaurants require a lot of energy and personality. Um, I try to use the approach of, well, when you get an application, a lot of times I find the applications don't speak to who the people are. I don't care what questions you ask. So I look at applications as just an opportunity to get a name and a phone number. But I want to meet the person before I make a judgment on what's on paper, based on what's on paper. So I invite people to the interviews. I use the interviews as a place of trying to connect, feel a connection based on the questions that's asked. And a lot of times you find that what you saw on paper really isn't telling you much about the person. So if I was to judge what the application said, I would turn it over and move on to the next one and move on to the next one. So I find that just sitting with people, talking to them, I always start my interview with a question of, tell me a little bit about yourself. I don't dive right into, well, where have you worked last and da 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 da. No, I try to find out about the person, and then based on how that conversation goes, then I would, probe a little bit more, and then I'd get into the job history and then say, well, so I see you have worked at such and such a place for such amount of time. If it's a short period of time, I would say, well, why did you only work there for 6 months? And then I'd listen to the story. And then I will continue with what the history of the work has been. And I will ask another question. And based on those questions, I can summarize whether I am dealing with an applicant who really is going to be vested. And for me, that's important because there's a lot of training that you do. You don't just put somebody in a store and work. I have to train them the Subway way or the Sbarro way, because each franchise is asking you to conduct your business a certain way. And so if I find what I define a hopper, someone that just hops around, I know that that's not what I'm looking for, because all of my employees are trained and it's paid training. It's not voluntary. I pay you for training. So if I'm going to spend 3 weeks training you, which is about an average time to really get someone up and running, I want to know that you're going to hang around for a while. So I look at that. The other thing I like to look at people who want to grow. I don't believe in hiring people who want to just stay in one position. I have needs for managers. So I want to know that someone is willing to work their way up the ladder and not just be comfortable in one position. And sometimes that's tough because you can know a job and do it well, but it doesn't mean that you can lead people. So, that in itself takes time. So there's quite a bit that goes into it, and it's there's a lot of energy, because training is something that I take very seriously, because the company takes it seriously, and because I get inspected every week, I want to make sure that we're not just preparing for an inspection. I want to make sure that every single day that if somebody pops in and I get a surprise inspection, we're doing what we're supposed to do. So that's kind of how I look at. And then on the office part, we have been blessed to really just had a group of young ladies. My husband have a joke that he only liked to surround himself with women because women keep him very organized. And it's not that, he's, as a man, my husband is very high energy. And so it takes a lot of us to really keep him organized. But because we joke around and say he always comes with the work. His job is to create work for us. So we have a great staff in our management office that provides assistance to me on the restaurant side, provide assistance to him on the gasoline side, because I mainly deal with the restaurant side, to be able to do our chores and keep our stuff together. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that is amazing. I want us to give our viewers a couple of tips in this other very unique area, which only you as a woman in business can really share with them. But first, let's talk generically about just what do you feel are some of the benefits of business ownership?
Mhm.
A lot of people are just afraid,
Mhm.
and people think when we talk about being in business for oneself, they think about big businesses and huge overhead and so forth. But if you do something from home, if you bake, cupcakes and supply, special events with cupcakes 3, 4 times a year, you're operating something that creates income for yourself. If you run errands for people, you're creating income for yourself. If
Mm.
you are a virtual tutor, to some of the millions of children who are being homeschooled right now,
Yeah.
you're creating income for yourself. So when we talk about being in business and you hear us using those terms, we're not talking about having gas stations and franchises and so on. If you're creating income on your own, you are operating a business. And
Yeah.
some people are very afraid of that. But what do you say are some of the wonderful benefits of being an owner of your own business?
Well, for me, I tell people all the time, the freedom. What does that mean for me? Every freedom is defined differently for everyone. I like the freedom of being able to say, I'm going on vacation for a month and I don't need someone to sign that paper. I like the freedom of saying, I'm going to work from 7:30 to 2:30 because that's when I pick up my daughter from school and I'm done. Um, I like the freedom to be able to say, you know what, um, today I don't feel like going to work. I don't feel well, and I'm not going to push through it. So it just depends on what your values are. What do you value? And for me, I value freedom, and I define it as the ability to be able to decide when I want to work and when I don't. Now, by no means that means that I decide to stay home 4 days out of the week, because I'm a workaholic by nature. I just like to be in the zone of getting things done. I like to be in the mix, sometimes too much at a fault. But it means that there's some days, or like in the summertime, my family and I, we take off for the entire summer. That to me is priceless. I get to spend the entire summer with my kids. Learning in the classroom is great, but learning to travel is wonderful. And so that is why, for me, I would say that's my biggest positive to be able to do this. Yeah.
Excellent. And you mentioned your children. You and your husband, Allie, are the parents of two lovely daughters. And that is a perfect segue to our final question, which is a tough one, especially for women. You know, just what tips do you have about how to strike that balance? I hear the word balance used a lot, but it's never really balanced. There's no balance for especially women in business, but for families in business,
Yeah.
for individuals who are creating their own income. There is no balance point in life. I mean, if you're managing children, spouses, businesses, multiple businesses, I mean, you have pets, you have, you have a life.
It's a lot. And I'll be very, very transparent. It's overwhelming sometimes. What keeps me going is I always I've always told myself my first job is being a parent. And so when I know that that is my first job, that's my most important job, um, I then have to, like right now in this period of homeschooling, it's overwhelming trying to run your business and make sure that your kids don't get left behind. So there's no easy answer. I think that we all have to just prioritize. I know that right now my daughter comes to work with me, and there's a conference room that has become her classroom. We have a chalkboard. I go on Khan Academy and I study how to do algebra so I can turn around, go back in the conference room and teach her the algebra. She doesn't need my assistance with much of the other subjects, but with math, she does. I still throw my eye on all the other subjects to make sure that, because this is right now all online learning, and a lot of it is independent learning, that she is, doing what needs to be done and doing it right. So the tools I have is just to remember, let it be at the forefront of your mind that your first most important job is to be a parent. Everything else, secondary, and just try to find your way how you prioritize things in that order.
So you do what one of our videos actually on Create Income Coach suggests. You look for a lifestyle instead of a job.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is what you've just explained so beautifully. You select what your daily priorities are. If your children are your priority, then you organize your work style, your business, your time around being available to do homework with your children. If you have spiritual time and exercise that you want to do in the morning, you organize your life around your daily priorities. I believe our video, Keep the Wolf Away from the Door plan, mentions look for a lifestyle, not a job. And I think that you've just shared so beautifully with us how to do that.
Thank you. It is tough, but like I said, remember what your first most important job is. First and most is the key word. First and most important.
So this last question, Beverly, is one where you are uniquely qualified. What about working with your spouse? In business with working with your spouse all day, then you're with your spouse at home with the kids, then you're with your spouse all night. So you're like with your spouse constantly. So talk about what that's like, and what are some of the tips for doing that well?
Okay. Well, wow. Working with my spouse, oh, thank God. We work well together. Now, when we both came into business, and the thought of working with my husband scared me, because we both came from running our own different jobs. We were both in management. We managed people. So I was like, I ain't taking no instruction from him. I ain't managing me. And that didn't work. And so one of the things that we quietly figured out, and it was just amazing how that happened, is we both have different strengths. And somehow we understood without saying it to let each other run in those areas where we're strong. My husband is financially strong. He is the one that will deal with the numbers. He is the one that creates the ideas will come to mind, and we'll discuss those together. What do you think about this? Or what do you think if we did that? And I'm usually the one that plays the devil's advocate. And I'll be like, well, suppose this or suppose that. I don't know if I want you to do this because da 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 da. And he's the one that's ready to just run. So we balance each other in that I pull him back when time needs to be pulled back, and then I release him. But one of the things I love about him is that he can take something and create it in the head and make it a reality. I can have an idea, but I don't have that gift to make it into reality the way my husband does. So we understand each other's strengths and weaknesses. And the other thing that he understands is that every idea, every concept that he comes up with and he can create and make it into reality, when it's become a reality, he hands it over to me and steps back because he has no strength in operations. Mm-hmm. That's not his thing. Putting systems in place, making sure the operation is running the way it's supposed to, that's not his strength. His strength is to create and hand over. And so for us, it's a very unique dynamic that works for us. One of the things we try not to do is to bring the work home, but sometimes you can't avoid it. But it's not, we know when to shut it down. In the office, we are not husband and wife, we're business partners. So we will go hard at something in the office because we're on opposite sides of how we think it should go. And our staff gets a kick out of this because they would hear us in our staff meetings and we're arguing a point of why we shouldn't and why we do, you know. And then when the meeting is done, we're in the office and we're working together and we're laughing and they're like, I have never seen anything like this. You guys just went so hard at each other in that meeting. And now it's like nothing happened. Yeah, nothing happened. In that moment, we were business partners. And now we're in the office here, we're working at our desk and we're husband and wife, you know? So for us, I'm blessed that we're able to turn on and off the switch and it works well for us. But I think for anyone who's working with their husband and or their wives, you know, what I would say, my advice is let each other function in the areas where they work best, where they excel best, and step back and not try to walk on their toes, you know, and just let each other, you have your strengths and the other person have their strengths. Let those two strengths come together to make a nice environment for entrepreneurship and working together.
Well, Beverly Petrus, you are just an amazing example of just survival, learning to develop and grow that inner person and faith as you walk through the unknown of learning how to create income in your life with or without a job. And you and your husband are certainly really dedicated in the community in the communities where your businesses operate. And I just want to thank you so much for sharing this inside information. It's so rare when, you know, people will share the hard parts, you know, and how you go from nothing to creating income. And so I sincerely thank you for sharing this heartfelt information with our viewers. We've been talking with Beverly Petrus, and she and her husband, Ali Petrus, operate a number of franchises and also gasoline businesses and retail space that they lease to other offices on several islands in the Caribbean. And they are the proud parents of two gorgeous daughters. And we just really thank you for persevering right now in the kinds of times that we're facing, where almost 22 million Americans alone are literally out of work. I think the value of this interview and the information you've shared today, you're going to touch someone's life. Someone is going to get a lifeline.
Jamila, if you don't mind, I'd just like to say one more thing. You just said something that's so important. Based on what's going on right now and the time that we're in, I think that people who have lost their jobs, we need to think differently. We are not going to come back as business as usual. We're going to have a new normal. This is a time in which people really need to sit down and really ask themselves, what are new opportunities that's going to come out of this that I can become an entrepreneur? Look for, this is going to be different. It's going to be very different. Some people may get their jobs back and some people may not. But sometimes God put us in these places to have us look inwardly and say, okay, this is something I've been talking about for a while. This is something I've been wanting to do for a while. This is something I've been sampling for a while. Maybe this is the time for you to recognize that things are not going to be business as usual. And this is time for you now to step out on faith. Look for where there are voids. There are going to be so many voids now as a result of COVID-19. And if you can fill a void, I'm seeing people who are making masks now and they're selling them. That's great. There are more things that are going to be needed. Use this as an opportunity to really look deep inside, pull out your skill sets like Jamila says. Use this time to reevaluate what else I can do. In the event, God forbid, but even if the job comes back, something that you can still do. It's the perfect time to reassess our gifts, talents, interests. Thank you.
So well said. Thank you again, Beverly Petrus, for being with us on Create Income with or Without a Job. I'm Jamila Harris, your Create Income coach. We invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Create Income Coach. Visit our website, createincomewithoutajob.com. We have an audio book that is available. It's an immediate download from our website. We have a quarantine price of only $12.99 for the download. And then we share videos, instructional videos on our channel that actually instruct you and walk you step by step by step through the actual steps that are given in the book, Create Income with or Without a Job. You will go from creating no income to learning how to create some income for yourself in your life. You can also like us on Facebook, and we thank you so much for joining us. Please continue to tune into Create Income with or Without a Job, and continue to check out our new videos, subscribe to the channel so that every time we upload a new instructional video or a new wonderful interview like this one, you will get a notification, and share, spread the word. There are literally tens of millions of people who need help right now. And that's our goal. We want to help as many people as possible to move from that fear and panic and not knowing where their next dime is coming from, to creating income for themselves. I'm Jamila Harris.